in here, and today's topic is mastering personalization and key part of a modern marketing. I would say just in the marketing, not only modern, in forever marketing. And we all know personalization is important, but doing it well and at scale is still a big challenge. And that's what we will talk about today: what works, what doesn't, and how we can do better. I'm Dmitry Kudrenko, CEO of Stripo, and I will be moderating today's panel. And I'm joined by three great experts who bring different views on a lot of hands-on experience. Anna Levitin, CRM and lifecycle market, CRM and lifecycle marketing leads at Doorloop. She's active in Women of Email and Only Influencers community, and she often speaks at email marketing events around the world. With us, Chad White, head of research at Oracle Digital Experience Agency, and the author of Email Marketing Rules. So there are already 4 editions, and 4th edition has 2 parts. So it's great book. I think most mentioned book in my personal and corporate blog. So also with us, Jasper Van Latham, senior email marketing and CRM strategist, speaker, and co-founder of the Future Funnel. Jasper helps companies improve how they manage and grow customer relationship. Thank you for joining us. And we will spend about 15 minutes in discussion. And then we will have 10 minutes for questions. But please ask a question during the session. We will moderate them. We will choose the question we can answer in this 10 minutes. And if it will be a lot of questions, we will maybe have more time for this. But we have only 1 hour. So let's get started. And the first question, just to warm up to all of you, what does personalization mean to you personally? And what you would say is a most valuable trait in email marketing? Who starts? Anna?
I would love to start. First of all, super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you everyone for joining. So I thought that we're gonna talk, all these 50 minutes about first name, but apparently there are other things that we can personalize. So for me, when I talk about personalization, mainly in B2B, is all about your case studies, your product values, and how they can match customer pain. So I work for a company called Doorloop, and Doorloop is a property management company. So our ICPs, the property managers, landlords. So for example, in any email marketing campaign or website or any social media post that mention our testimonials, our raving fans, our users, we always include their title, number of units they manage, the state, their location, because this is what makes user look at this and say, wow, this is very similar to my case. This is very similar to challenges that I experience. Let me see. So in a nutshell, it's not only about first name, but it's more how user can be related and how we can highlight the value of the product for their specific case.
Okay, great, thank you. Chad, can you add something?
Yeah, so I think personalization is all about making customers feel special, making your prospects feel special. They want to feel listened to, and they want to feel seen. They don't want to feel stalked, but they want to feel seen. And personalization allows brands to demonstrate that they're paying attention to what their customers and their prospects are doing, and then responding to their needs and their preferences and valuing them as individuals, which is, I think, especially important for younger generations. They really want to be recognized as being individuals. They don't like to see stuff that is just for everybody and clearly generic. So to me, that's what personalization is all about. It's how you make people feel.
Yeah. a great idea that for younger generation, personalization means more than for us who already have generic communication. Interesting. Jasper, do you have something to add here?
Yeah, sure. When I talk about personalization, I generally talk about just being as relevant as possible to the user and subscriber. And as a brand, what does it mean? Why do we do personalization? It's all about capturing attention and retaining that attention, and actually using personalization to guide those actions and eventually change behavior, but also ultimately for long-term retention. And that's where personalization comes in. And I love what you said, Chad. And something similar like that, personalization is also a bit of a form of respect, long-term respect for the user. And in the long term, it will build trust. And that's what it's all about. Just being more relevant and respectful. And subscribers will positively engage and stay engaged for a long time. I think the long-term behavior and retention is really important and sometimes forgotten, I think.
Yeah. So it means that personalization is not just to put in email the data we know about you. It also respect. I like this. So respect also, by the way, is speaking in the same language. So translation is kind of personalization as well. It's a good timing for saying it's personalization as well. Interesting.
Yeah.
But do you know like any cases where personalization doesn't work or even like break things, make it worse?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. I think we've all sort of encountered personalization that was creepy, that like crossed the line. And I think that boils down to a few different kind of scenarios. I think the first is like getting data that you're not supposed to have, that a customer or prospect doesn't expect you to have. And that's usually comes through like third-party data acquisition. That can definitely get things off on the wrong foot. I think also, socially unacceptable predictions can be problematic. Sort of very famous here in the U.S. is many years ago. Target, a big big box discounter, they were using browsing and purchase history to predict whether or not a subscriber was pregnant or not, and then sending them messaging around that. And that made national news. There was a teenage daughter who was pregnant and got sort of outed to her parents because of what Target was sending her at her parents' house. So that is, I think, a very good example of like going too far, like what's beyond what's socially acceptable. You can predict all kinds of things, and there's some things you shouldn't try to predict. And then also, I think more generally, just sort of coming on too strong. I think there's all kinds of actions that consumers take, and sometimes, they know they're being watched, they know they're being tracked, but sometimes, if you come on, like if you respond too forcefully with that specific information, that can be problematic. And so I often recommend, when it makes sense to like, if you're watching what people are doing, like mix in other types of product recommendations, for instance, that aren't specific to their behavior, that are like very popular products. Like, don't be so like on the nose with it. And that can make it seem like this is like, a happy chance that this thing got recommended because I was looking at something similar, for instance. So you got to be a little bit more careful. Now, beyond that, I think that we should acknowledge that there are tons of things you can personalize, and that most of them don't make a difference. We put together a list of like 170 plus different criteria that you could use to personalize and segment based on. And depending on what your message is, most of those things are completely irrelevant, right? So it's all about personalizing to the message, to the goal of the campaign. That is so critical. And that means that there's, it's usually like it's all about kind of the art of finding those few things that really relate, very specifically to that goal, to that message. And so it's not everything. And I think this is incredibly important to know and recognize right now because of generative AI. That is really putting forward this idea that like everything in a message could be personalized, everything, which to me is like very worrisome. So for instance, I heard someone suggest that you could monitor a customer's interactions with your brand, the emails they send us support, and you could analyze their diction, and then you could reflect their diction back to them in the messages that you send them. That seems to me like way over the line and like really misrepresenting your brand, misrepresenting whoever the message is from. So like, I think that's an example of where we are right now, where generative AI can do all kinds of things. And we're in that mode of like, can we do this? And I think not enough people are asking, should we do this? I think a lot of folks are going to get into trouble. So I think there are ways that you can personalize that are very harmful and can get you in hot water.
Yeah, it means that earlier, if you do personalization because of you can do now, and now we can do so many things, then we don't need to personalize only because of we can. So we need to
true.
Yeah.
I've actually seen a few cases from brands who were doing hyper personalization, like one-on-one personalization, but they decided to dial it back because what they found out is that customers weren't discovering the rest of their assortment of their categories because they actually only recommended the same amount of products, categories, brands, and they stayed in their own little bubble. So your brand stops showing your range actually, and not only that, for some brands it's not beneficial because for some brands you want to be well known for a certain category, for instance, what you call a destination category, and if you only show the category which consumers are buying in, they also stay within that category, and you're not improving your brand and your the category you want to be well known for. So I see a lot of brands dialing back that one-on-one hyper personalization, but then using some segmentation in the mix as well. So
yeah, I think that's so important. I was going to mention this later on, but Jasper, you've inspired me. So like I recently wrote an article about like 4 hallmarks of like great email marketing programs, and one of them is that they're dialing back on personalization for just those reasons that you mentioned, that they're using personalization so much that it kind of takes away from the overall brand experience, and you put people into their own little bubble and you ruin that kind of common experience. So I think like the best programs right now are taking a step back and like reassessing maybe just how much personalization they're using, because there's definitely cases where you can massively overuse it.
Yeah, but does it mean that we need to cancel this? Maybe we need to improve it, adding some triggers to go into non very popular categories. It's not, maybe it works, but it works too hard and too better than expected. We need to make it not so personal, but it's personalization.
Well, it will be a mix. I think it will be a mix of some segmentation, some one-on-one recommendation and personalization, and then maybe some recommendation engines which are just outside of your normal, more discovery kind of recommendation engines and stuff like that. So it will be a mix of several types of personalization.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, moderation. I think it is a little bit tricky because I think everyone here has been in this space for a long time now, and forever we've been saying like more personalization is better, but there are always like technological barriers that were in the way, and a lot of those barriers have really have fallen away, and now we're at that stage where we're having to ask a different question. Like it used to be like, how much more can we add, and now it's about, all right, like, are we doing it too much? Are we crowding out brand messaging? Are we crowding out the common experience? So I think it's, we just need to moderate it a little bit, but we're in a very spoiled position where we can do so much now. And now we just need to ask like, what's appropriate?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, what you mentioned, that everybody's thinking it's a bit like optimizing. When you think about optimization or experimentation, everybody thinks of adding more. but nobody's thinking about detracting and doing less sometimes. And in some cases, it's harder to do less, and that might be the case sometimes with personalization.
Yeah, write a simple text is harder than complicated text. The same.
Yeah.
Over personalization is easier than accurate personalization. Exactly. Anna,
we are having interesting discussion here in comments. Sylvia wrote about that we should stick to the preference that user told us, like I want to receive emails about XYZ. So I'm just want to share my opinion. On one hand, like, yes, this is very respectful. On the other hand, if I know so much more information about user, why not to use it? And then, okay, if we stick only to preference, this is something we need to update, like at least, once a half a year, or not even often. So what do you folks think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we have to recognize preferences have a half-life, right? Like especially around things like topic interests. And so I think preferences are fantastic at the beginning of a relationship or to reboot a relationship, right? If they go and they say, hey, I'm not interested in this anymore, I'm interested in this, that's great. But I mean, I think your point is a good one, Anna. You gotta listen to what people are doing, not just what they say, because sometimes those two things don't always match up all that well. And again, there's like very much a half-life on what they tell you. We wish people were constantly updating their preferences, and they're not. And so you have to go on their behavior. So there's like a transition over time that if they say they were really interested in baseball, and then all of a sudden you see them doing lots of browsing in basketball, like you would be foolish to ignore that behavior and not try to say, hey, like, let's show you some things about basketball now that maybe you're more interested in, maybe for you or someone, in your household or a friend or whatever it might be. So you got to be careful. Like, you want to be respectful, but paying attention to their behavior is also respectful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, that's a bit of touching upon the zero-party data part. And when using zero-party data, it's always really important. What I always say is it's always really important to set a refresh cadence. Re-ask questions because people change, preferences change, plans change. So we need to, ask those questions again and make sure those preferences are still the same. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's kind of personalization is using the data you have to motivate people. But to have a data, you have to listen and gather relevant data. And only because of their words, it doesn't matter that you use it. If you have his triggers, he used to do purchases or maybe reading content and doing something direct with you. By the way, in your view, what's the most overlooked touch points in the customer journey that can benefit from deeper personalization? Do you have thoughts here?
I have a B2B examples here, and this is something we try to solve also, and personalize that door loop. I think the touch point that can really, move the needle and be personalized, it is a demo. But oftentimes we marketers, we don't have enough information of what exactly user wants to see on the demo. So as a customer myself, when I choose any marketing tool or any B2B SaaS tool, I want to answer just a few questions, right? I don't want to write the entire email of what I'm looking for. But at the same time, when I'm on the demo, I don't want to be shown relevant features. So oftentimes, our challenge at DoorLoop is that we don't have responses from our prospects. They don't answer SDR calls, so we don't really know what they would like to see, as we have a lot of features. So something that we are literally going to implement next week and maybe our audience will benefit from this, is when user is joining the like waiting room on any video platform like you use for a demo. Usually, if they're like a few minutes earlier, or if sales representative a little bit late, so there is usually like possibility to add a video. So we added like a short video where we highlighted the testimonials from our users, and this is how we sort of encourage our prospects to focus and to ask us very specific questions and highlight that, like I'm more interested in rental applications, something like that. So we know what to show on demo.
Yes, it makes sense.
I think that's great on the B2B side. On the B2C side, I think it's probably, in my mind, it's welcome messages, like when someone signs up for your program. I think we often treat that as like a zero knowledge experience starting point, and that's not always the case, right? People sign up for your email marketing program that have been customers for years, and so you have data that you can use. You can also collect data during sign up. It's super prevalent today. Maybe not like the initial sign up, but then after, so like right after they sign up, when you confirm their opt-in, there's additional questions that you're asking them, in terms of like geography and other kinds of things. Turn around and make sure you use that right away, and you're welcome. Geographic data, we have that we can use. Geography can really seriously change how you're talking about your brand. And then even the acquisition source profile, right? So if someone signs up on your homepage, that's particularly that may be someone who doesn't quite understand your brand as well as someone who's signing up like during checkout, for instance, right? These are two potentially very different people in terms of the knowledge that they have about your brand. You could reflect that in your welcome email and your welcome series as well. So I think that's an area where we could do a lot more than we think we can do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually had this would say the same thing. Like early customer interactions are the most important. Like welcome onboarding emails. Like when the intent is new and the interest is still new and the data is actually still fresh. It's really important. Or also post-purchase communication, really important. Because what we see is a good onboarding, a good customer onboarding and welcoming is actually crucial for long-term retention. And that's really, really important. It's not a lot of companies measure this because it's not that easy. But if you do, you see really great results. Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I expected that deeper personalization we need when we're more close to the conversion. Because of there we know exactly the data he interested, and it's hard to do wrong personalization. You can say, okay, you compared it with these products, we can help you to do a choice and lead you to conversion. And here is like my next question. In your experience, what kind of signals from a customer we can have to predict the conversion, and how we can capture them in a moment and use in our personalization communication?
I think it's pretty much depends on the company, like how they defined, based on attribution and a lot of other factors. But I can say one thing: it should be aligned and agreed between different teams. So there would be like the same signals that sales team consider as a like high level intent. The same should be for marketing, because from my experience working also like in B2B, in B2C companies, oftentimes it's slightly different. And for me personally, it's like a lead score based on the several questions user answer in a demo form, something like a pricing page visit, or if we have a specific pages based on competitors overview or migration. But again, this should be, it's often very easy to overcomplicate it. So I would suggest to start small and agree with sales team, as I said, and then just add as long you have more data.
Yeah, agree. Do Chad or Jasper want to add here?
Yeah, I would mention the same thing. It really depends on the product or the service. But what we see is that, yeah, recency of engagement is really important. And micro conversions or the micro events, which are closer to the funnel, are the most predictive of a conversion. And what we also see is that, yeah, when we see consistent engagement across multiple channels, it really correlates with predicted a conversion, but also with more long-term retention and repeat purchases. So yeah.
Yeah, those are
From
great.
our side. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are great answers. I mean, I think it's all about like consideration and purchase intent signals. And it really varies depending on the brand and the industry. And I think that, you know, Anna and Jasper really definitely captured like sort of that high consideration event, so something that's very expensive. You know, a lot of like B2B purchases are that way. In the B2B, in the B2C space, where consideration is much lower, much more lower priced items, I think there it gets a little bit broader. Like if you start to see people, you know, exploring different products in the same category. Or certainly if they're, you know, clicking on, you know, colors or sizes of, you know, a piece of apparel, for instance, like that kind of activity is also, you know, in that space, like pretty far down the funnel and is pretty high on the intent scale. But it does really kind of, it does really matter. And I think certainly in all of these cases, you know, how we should be responding is the most important thing. You know, when we look for those signals of struggle or confusion, that's where we can, you know, if we see them looking at the pricing page and they're not sure, you know, what offer is, like that's a great signal that like, hey, maybe they need more clarity around, you know, the offerings in each of the buckets. Or, you know, if they're looking at different products, maybe they're not clear what the best one is, and maybe you need, you know, some content that helps them narrow it down. So those are great signals of, again, of friction that email marketing could definitely swoop in with, or other kinds of digital marketing can swoop in with and help to clarify and kind of smooth those barriers out and move things forward to conversion.
Yeah, exactly. Especially a lot of signals, a lot of data, and we have to be accurate with this. And I thought that sometimes it's make things worse, but now we have AI, as I can analyze all the data and understand the signals. And Chad already mentioned role of AI in personalization. And I have a question. So with the rise of AI in CRMs, how we are leveraging machine learning to deliver more relevant offer or content to user. So I think the answer to this question can be different every month because of AI is changing. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. But I think a lot of companies have already been using AI and machine learning, especially within certain tech stacks, like send time optimization has been prevalent, been used for quite a while already. But also tools offer simple product recommendation engine, or predictive modeling has already been around for quite a while. But I think now we also see AI being used a lot in the creative process, the creative process of the emails, from the entire process, from strategy to copywriting, imagery, design, coding, everything actually. So I think that's going to be a biggest change. And also, I think I recently was listening to the podcast of Rasmus Hulmand about from Hello First Name, and he talks about the personalization gap, because a lot of companies already have a lot of data, but the thing is, it's complex and hard to activate that data because of the creative part. For every data point, you need a creative to be there. So he talks about a creative crisis or something like that. And AI could be a way to solve that. So we need more automation to activate the data we have already, to personalize more. But then we can use AI in those workflows for like copywriting, imagery, and I think in 2025 or in the next years, a lot of creative solutions or even new tools will appear to help a lot of companies to enable and activate that data. So yeah.
Anna?
Well, I use AI a lot for content creation, what just mentioned. I think I sort of would like to have more guidance from the platforms, actually, how we can use it. Jasper just mentioned that we should guide our customers, right? But we as a customers of like ESP, CDP, CRM, to be guided. So, for example, I would like to leverage my understanding of test running, prediction, but at the same time, I don't want to oversee some opportunities that are not mentioned by AI tool.
Yeah.
Good point.
And Chad, I know that you always we always review around the role of AI. So, what you think now with AI?
No, I largely agree with Jasper. Like, yeah, machine learning has been around for a long time, and I think that's been well used and mostly great. Not always easy, and I think that's like kind of the difference with generative AI is that generative AI seems easier in some ways, even though the output isn't necessarily better. So you have to be a little bit careful. But I wanted to key on one of the things that Jasper said, was talking about activating data, and and Anna also mentioned CDPs, and I feel like that's really one of the essential pieces to moving forward into this more personalized, more responsive digital marketing world that we're moving into. And there I find that I think there's a lot to talk about there, because CDPs have, I think, unfortunately, kind of a mixed track record. I think the idea is awesome, and certainly here at Oracle, we sell CDPs and implement them, but we have clients who have struggled, and we have one client who's not on our CDP, who's on a different CDP, implemented it 2 years ago and hasn't gotten any value from it. And I don't think it's just like a technological challenge. I think there's a lot of like internal politics and data hoarding, and also the data itself is complicated, to move around and clean and get all working properly. There's a lot of legwork that has to happen there, but I think that is one of like the essential things. When you talk about personalization, you can't ignore like where the data is coming from. And I think long term, it's something like a CDP is absolutely mandatory, really, to be able to do all the things that we're talking about. And it's not just about personalization, it's about omnichannel orchestration, getting all these channels to work together, and also customer-centric analytics, which I feel like is a huge sore point for a lot of brands. So many brands are still focused on campaigns and on channels, and they're not really focused on their customers and measuring customer lifetime value and measuring the impact of certain campaigns on what that does to a customer's lifetime value. They're still very campaign-centric, and you still want to measure campaigns, but there needs to be this shift to customers, and right now that's super hard to do because we don't have the data all in one place where it's organized around customers. Our businesses aren't organized around customers currently, and so CDPs are really key to moving forward there.
But it's much easier to measure campaign metrics than life cycles, which is a narrative. I love to say, like from agile values, that individuals and interactions over processes and tools. AI is a tool. CDP is a tool. We need to care about customers and how we use this tool to make them happy. Yeah, I agree with you. And you mentioned CDP, and I think it's a tricky question here. Like, CDP is becoming central of marketing strategy because of its key points that gather data. And where you see the biggest opportunities for CDP to involve next? What's the biggest personalization challenges CDP still didn't solve? And what do you think we can have next year?
It's actually interesting that you mentioned the CDP because actually this week was the Martech day. I don't know if you saw it from Frans Riemersma, and they talked about the Martech in the Martech report. They also mentioned CDPs as core to data activation, and they mentioned several challenges similar as you just mentioned, Chad, like the data is a really big issue, data quality. Data integration, because a lot of things are still fragmented. They're still fragmented, it's inconsistent, and it's supposed to be very easy to stitch all the data together, but it's similar as we see with several clients. We work with several clients as well who have CDPs very similar as you just mentioned for quite a while, where they haven't been able to do anything with it. Management is waiting for some return for some use cases, but they can't. They haven't been able to set up anything. So yeah, the data is still a big issue, but in my opinion, the biggest struggle with the CDPs and being able to activate it, it's not the data issue or the technology, but it's just organizational actually. Because the technology, it evolved so fast, but the companies, the organizations, they aren't able to follow that change, because the CDP is something so different, something so new. The possibilities are endless, and a lot of marketeers, it's not something you learn in school. A lot of marketeers are not prepared for this. So without
there is
the
no
proper
faculty of CDP or of email marketing. We need to.
True. Yeah, true. It's actually, without the proper training and support and clear understanding, it will remain a little too complex for a lot of marketeers. So I think that's a really big challenge, and I hope in the future, more time and resources will be available for those marketeers or support to help them.
I just want to second what Jasper said, that CDP, it stands for Customer Data Platform, right? So customer in the middle, this is our main focus. Data, this is what we would like to get from our customers, and platform supposed to help us to get this data. But it oftentimes happens that it has like another layer of complexity, right? I'm not a techie person, being honest, but I want to be able to write, a simple query to have more data and not necessarily run to the data team and open every time ticket when I want to get some insights. It should help us marketers to get insights faster and in a better, and have an understanding, not just the massive spreadsheets, but really insight that we can immediately implement in our campaigns.
Yeah, totally agree.
So, Chad, do you have any prediction what to expect in the CDP next year?
Yeah, I think just to echo what Jasper and Anna said, I think it needs to get easier, and I think there's a lot of smart people. I know we're working on making that easier for our customers as well, but there are just inherent challenges, right? Internal politics, internal organizational struggles that go well beyond the technology itself.
Yeah. Interesting. Simplicity. It's the most tricky thing. Let's assume you did great automation with a lot of personalization. How do you test and scale success of automation across any channels. Do you have an experience how you do this? We are not speaking only about email, we're speaking about communication with the customer, any channel.
I'm happy to go. So I think one of the things that's really key here is to recognize that all these channels are inherently different, that they have different consumer expectations that are attached to all of them. And I think everyone recognizes the need for omni-channel orchestration and to have coherent, unified messaging across channels. But you got to be careful with the sameness. The sameness can be very bad. And so I wanted to share one example from one of our clients. So we have a client who does marketing via email, SMS, and push, and roughly 10% of their overall audience is opted in to two of those channels, two of those three. And there's 1% of their audience that is opted in to all three of those channels. And the subscribers are anywhere from 2 to 9 times more engaged and more valuable, those folks who were opted into 2 or 3 channels. And so these are incredibly valuable customers. How are you treating them in a way that respects the fact that they've opted into these multiple channels? Because if you're just shoving out the same kind of content and it all reads the same, I think it's it's not going to take very long before they recognize, hey, I don't need to be subscribed to all these different channels. So you need to have like very coherent channel-specific strategies that all kind of work together, but not in like the same identical way, like really making use of the strengths and weaknesses, or being very aware of the strengths and weaknesses of each of those channels, individually. So I feel like this is a relatively new issue that a lot of brands have not been able to like fully wrap their brains around, but like that's something that more brands, as they're getting more of a critical mass across multiple channels, they really need to pay much more attention to. It can't be the same. It's got to be coordinated. It's got to be unified and cohesive, but it can't be the same.
Yeah. Anna,
I love Chad's comment, and it actually made me think that oftentimes there is no enough internal adoption as specific platforms. That's why they are not talking to each other. That's why instead of omnichannel, we have multi-channel, right? We have different channels and they're sending the same message and they're not talking to each other. Why? Because it could have managed by different teams, or completely, just one platform could be overseen, and there is never enough time to really adopt this platform. I guess we all seen these examples. We have a transactional email from the company, especially from the banks, right? We have a transactional email, which is super boring, like plain text, and then we have a promotional, and you see this discrepancy in design and in everything.
Yeah, so being consistent across all departments, all stakeholders in a communication is very important. But sometimes it's different departments. It's hard to manage, especially in big companies with a lot of products, but the same content base. Yes, it's changeable, exactly. And here, I just already mentioned third-party cookies going away. Zero-party data is essential. So what are the best way for brands to earn this kind of data for customers? Data is crucial here.
Yeah, well, even though the third-party cookies aren't going away just yet, but the writing is still on the wall. With the change Google made, they're not gonna depreciate the third-party cookies just yet. But even though we can't still rely on third-party cookies, and what we see is the best way to gather zero-party data is something I mostly talk about. We can talk about several tactics, but we try to make it either fun, functional, or frictionless. And when we talk about fun, it's like quizzes or gamifying your questions or surveys or preference center even, or functional when that's really valuable, like onboarding questionnaires or gift guides, stuff like that. And when we talk about frictionless, it's making it as easy as possible. It's just a straightforward question in an email where you just capture the data on click. It's very easy, and that's progressive profiling, and that's really important to do it like that. So
Yeah, exactly. I know so many cases when company gets the data but don't use it for years, and one day decide to use, which is maybe not relevant anymore.
I think
I
it's
think-
probably. Sorry, go ahead.
Please.
I think
Go
it's
ahead.
even more dangerous to do that. Like when you ask for information, your customers, your subscribers expect you to use it, and then when you don't, it's a breach of trust, and it makes them tune out and not want to give you more information because so you can't hoard data like that you think you might use in 2 years. You shouldn't ask for data until you need a use for it, because the consumer expectations are working against you.
I think this question should be rephrased like not how to get this data, but how to categorize, how to structure, how to manage this data. And this is where we go back to CDP questions. So it's like vicious circle. We have data, we don't know how to use it. We send we use it when it's already outdated, and it's like all over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Chad already mentioned that we need to use the right metrics. And sometimes it's hard to get the right metrics. And what metrics you think you predict will be shifted to the hard metrics, something customer-based metrics. So could you give an example of the best metric you would recommend maybe for different industries, B2B, B2C? We understand that we cannot rely on open rates because of all this restriction. We even can't rely on the clicks, but what is your metric? And what is the metric of the next year?
The best metric. So much pressure on the metric. But well, it really depends on the business, of course. But I would say if you think about, when you're looking at success of personalization in your email campaigns, it's obvious to look at business impact, like transaction, revenue, conversion rate, and stuff like that. But if you look at that, it's mostly immediate short-term results. If you look at the more of the long term, because like I mentioned before, you not only use personalization for the immediate results, but also for the long-term retention. And then you talk about customer lifetime value or even subscriber lifetime value. Those are probably the hardest to gather that information and to make clear. But I think those are the most important if you think about it long term.
From the B2B standpoint, I would say focus on the business metrics. Of course, it's like in our case, demo completed, opportunity, account, ARR, but also sometimes we have to be negative. I personally mostly positive, but negative, it means see, okay, how fast I can unqualify the user, right? Understand that they're unqualified, or how fast I can recognize that there will be no show for the demo. So it will save not only time of account executive or SDR that's supposed to show this demo, but also give signals, the right signals, not to bring users like this to acquisition platforms like Google, Meta, and so on and so forth. So sometimes being negative is also good.
Yeah, the only thing I would add was just build on what Jasper was saying, that it really depends on the business, what kind of goals you have for your digital marketing programs. There are businesses that are very revenue oriented, like a lot of retailers are. As Anna said, leads for most B2B brands. Like your program is all about that. There are some programs that don't sell direct. A lot of like consumer packaged goods companies, they don't sell direct. So for them, like their programs might be largely about engagement, which is definitely, to your point, you're like the fuzziest part of it. But that's the part that they care about. And then lastly, I think the fourth kind of business would be ones that are really all about retention. So like subscription-based models, for them, it's all about keeping that subscriber subscribed, to their streaming service, to their app, whatever it might be. So I think those are like kind of the four different kinds of businesses, and
Yes.
it really changes completely the metrics that you're paying attention to when it comes to your digital marketing program.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty tricky, especially when we have a metrics customer oriented, but there is not only direct channel impact on it. It's also product, it's also attribution model and everything. And when we start to compete, who did better for this conversion. Sometimes it's like a fair competition inside the company. It's hard. Yeah, but we almost out of time for our questions. So my last question, to summarize it somehow, what changes do you anticipate in email personalization, and how marketers should be prepared for this? So how do you think?
Well, I think there will be several shifts, but some things we personally see in our business is that there will be some kind of a shift from tool and technology focus towards more people and organization focus, because management is they have the new tech stack. CDPs are there for some companies already, but without any results or knowing how to use them. So we think there will be more of a shift towards creating more in-house capabilities, more in-house knowledge, with more hands-on support, hands-on training, and the right strategies actually to activate them. So that's something really important we see. And also something you mentioned already, Chad, is like going from only focusing on personalization to more orchestration, like more coordination of the different channels, thinking about the experiences, stuff like that. And in those terms, we tend to only focus on, like I mentioned before, adding more channels, more personalization, stuff like that. I think some more focus will be also added to more exclusions from some channels, some messages and stuff like that. But that's a really hard one. That's very tricky to convince marketeers or management about. But people are becoming more aware of it. So those are the two things we are seeing.
Yeah. So channel is another way of personalization. Interesting. Yeah. Chet?
Sure. Yeah, I think sort of like near-term struggles aside, I think long-term we're going to have way more capabilities than we've ever had before. And so to Jasper's point, I think it's going to be about like moderation, like drawing some lines and understanding the larger business and brand goals, and not just about like fully leaning into the technology. So that I think is going to be a really big shift, because we're going to be able to do all kinds of things, and the question will be, should we do that? Is that a good message? Is it good for the brand? Is it accomplishing the goals that we want? And I think that increasingly restraint will be the order of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it means that to moderate this, we need to have everything in one place, to have some responsible for this moderation. If you use different system to keep the data, if you use different system for sending, I don't know, sending it's maybe easy, different providers, but it have to be activated from one place to make it moderated. Interesting. Anna? You mute. You unmute them.
Sorry, I totally agree that it's not solely about email. It's about like the choosing the right channel for this specific user. So it's on that level of personalization. Also, I think it's minimizing the number of action user have to perform in order to reach the goal. For example, oftentimes I see once user fill the form and then they click from email and there is no dynamic elements in the link, so they have to fill the form again, and it's just it's not a great experience. So maybe double down on this, like, so provide more like smooth experience. And also like email integration with other channels. Like I know that TikTok, I think they have in beta like actually opportunity to collect emails, like for example, would like to learn more or want to schedule a demo, or click here, and if it's integrated with your ESP, so they automatically like enrolled into nurture, into calls, emails.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It's interesting. And we have several minutes for a question from a chat. Yes, and we have it. You can see it in front of you. First, could you please tell more about effect of hyper-personalization? I think Jasper already started to say about this. Hyper-personalization. By the way, what it is, it means that one-to-one personalization, whole email for everybody. What you can say here?
Yeah, when we talk about the effects of hyper-personalization, like I mentioned before, it's just a very one-on-one personalization. And I mentioned before that the effect that some brands are dialing it back, because you stay in your echo chamber and not recommending more products outside of the range of all the categories a company provides. But in terms of effects, talking about positive effects, it can also obviously have positive effects, but it depends. But I would say just to mix it up and not to make a mix of hyper personalization and more segmentation combined. That would be my recommendation, to be honest.
So hyper-personalization is not the goal. Yeah, it's just one of the tools we can use and not necessary.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank
I
you.
agree.
Other questions? Yeah. How do you ensure your personalization efforts stay relevant over time without becoming stale or repetitive for customer? Or repetitive for customers.
Yeah, so we talked earlier about like preferences, like essentially zero-party data versus first-party data. What people tell you versus what they do, and I think this kind of plays into that. Like, when folks tell you something, that's really relevant, but it has like a half-life to it. It doesn't stay forever. You have to start looking at their behavior. Does their behavior back up what they told you? And also, does their behavior change over time? For me, I think part of the core of what we're talking about today is like whether or not, email marketing and other forms of digital marketing are a conversation or not. And I feel very strongly that it is. It's a dialogue. And when you don't personalize, when you don't automate, when you don't segment, when you're just sending the same stuff to everybody, you're just having a monologue, which is fine for certain kinds of businesses, for like newsletter businesses and what have you. That's fine. But I think in general, that's not what we're talking about, right? You're talking about, you really do want to have a dialogue. And so, paying attention to those signals and how they change over time so you can adapt, the things that you're recommending, the things that you're saying, the segments that you're putting people into, and even beyond, topics, also engagement, right? People's engagement wanes and waxes over time. So, paying attention to that too, right? People sometimes are in market, sometimes they're not. We haven't really talked about that, but, modulating frequency is also super important, and also part of listening and paying attention to the signals that they're sending you. So it's an ongoing listening exercise, and you need to respond in kind to those signals.
Yeah, exactly. I would add very quickly that also it's good to observe like negative metrics, like your bounce rate or engagement rate. If you do repetitive, not very valuable communication with your customer, you will see it in your unsubscribe rate or others. And usually rate is not very good. You look on the absolute numbers because of usually rate is very small, it's not the problem. But when you see how many customers you lose because of you do repetitive communication, it's disaster. Yeah, agree. Thank you. Alina, hello. As AI players, plays a bigger role in personalization. How do you find the right balance between automated messages and keeping the personal human touch in your customer communication? Oh,
I think we
you.
could separate it also between the channels. So, for example, you can't, send every user like with another sequence or create every day another sequence. But what you can do is to customize your chat also using AI. So, their communication, for example, on site and chat, they will be more personalized, and depends on the tier. There will be more human support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think AI especially can play a bigger role in personalization, but also keeping it personal, the human touch. I think AI can give that human personal touch if with the right settings, and it can do it actually at scale. I think that will be a main benefit of AI. So it doesn't have to exclude the human personal touch. It's all about perception of the customer and the and the receiver, of course.
And perception is really important. I do find there's like an inherent tension between like what we're talking about with AI today and sort of cultural expectations, especially with younger folks. They're like really dialed into authenticity and like being honest and real. And some of the stuff that we're proposing doing with AI, I feel like goes off in a different direction. But we sort of touched on a little bit like customer support and customer interactions. I think one of the big things in the future they're going to have to pay a lot of attention to is where is that handoff point, right? Because it will be very efficient for AI to handle certain kinds of interactions, outside of marketing, even like just in like the customer service space. But what's that point where now you escalate it to a real person? So, in like B2B marketing, for instance, where there's so often sales reps who take that baton. Where do you draw the line, and what sort of expectations have been set with those marketing communications before it gets handed off? I think that handoff period is going to be something that we pay a lot of attention to in the future. When do we do it? When's the optimal time? And then what kind of expectations have we set prior to that, so that that human can actually carry through on all those expectations that have been set prior.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. We have another questions, but we out of time. No. Thank you. Yeah, we saw the question, but it disappeared. And again, it's here. Okay, let's answer for the last question. And UT, thank you for webinar. Thank you for listening. How do you prioritize which customer touch point should be personalized first, especially when resources are limited? What to do first?
I think we touched upon that a little bit when we talked about the first customer interactions as onboarding or welcome emails and flows and stuff like that. But I would also add to that when you have to prioritize some touch points, and it depends a bit on your business, of course. But if you're like a retailer or an e-commerce company, I think flows and touch points which are close to the conversion point, just after or just before, are really important as well and very valuable. You will see immediate results from that. So just do a quick prioritization with all that. but I would really suggest those.
Yeah, points of friction. Identify those points of friction. That's where you can have the biggest impact. And yes, a lot of those high value points of friction are going to be around the point of conversion.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Point of friction. Yeah.
We lost Anna, maybe because of it's out of time. We were out of 5 minutes, and we need to wrap up. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jasper, for your patience. Thank you for your time. And we already said thank you to you and all of you for your time, for your patience, for your advices, for your ideas, for the whole work you do for industry. And thank you all for questions. I know that we didn't answer all the questions, but it's not supposed to do. But we will read all the questions. And if you can answer all the comments, we will definitely do this. Thank you very much. See you later on other webinars.
You're very welcome. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.